This gentleman right here who wrote, this gentleman right here, he wrote the Windows login cheat sheet, right? So you cannot do forensics. You cannot do investigations without a document that this gentleman right here produced. So I'm very proud to announce Mr. Michael Gough from Austin, Texas, the great state of Texas, who's going to give us a keynote about what he has learned in the last 20 years. I'm sure this is going to be an amazing keynote. So take it away, sir.
All right. Before you guys leave, I'm just keeping the theme of malware on, so thanks for all your hard effort. I'll give you these. And he's walking away, so he's not going to call. Just want to say what's on here. Warning, this ad may contain malware, so there you go. Well, and no one over your head. Morning, everybody. Oh, come on, Austin does better than that. Good morning, Miami. I guess maybe I should have said that for starters. Compelling questions will be rewarded with thumb drives, so and Chris gets one. Chris gets one just because he likes malware like I do. My name is Michael Gough. I do live in Austin, Texas, though I am from California, so great state of Texas. Not so much. Great city of Austin, yeah. And just to point out, Patrice now lives in Austin, so we stole one of your own. Sorry. So, how many people here have never heard of me before? Quite a bit, I'm guessing, because this is a new area for me. I haven't been down to Miami doing any presentations, and I do a lot of presentations. I was in Denver last week and actually saw a couple people in Denver, and then besides Austin the week before. So yeah, for a lot of you, I'm going to be new. As Rod said, I am the developer and creator of the Windows logging cheat sheets. If you ever work with Windows, and I know a lot of us don't want to, but in reality, our jobs require us to, or you are a red teamer, and you want to understand what your red teaming looks like on a box that's properly logged, then you need to know about these cheat sheets, okay? These were created basically as an outcome to me dealing with the Chinese APT attack, which I'm going to touch on in the course of the Prezzo. But these are free resources on malwarearchaeology.com that you can download. They're all PDFs. We even cover the file and registry auditing, so that way if you really want to see what kind of file drops there are when you detonate malware, it's kind of what LogMD was built on, is kind of take these cheat sheets and then look for all the items. But we also have PowerShell and Splunk logging cheat sheet, and then this thing called the Malware Management Framework. Think of it as vulnerability management, just apply malware to it. I read reports from those like Chris and other malware researchers. I look for interesting artifacts, what was interesting in WannaCry, and I say, am I looking for that already or not looking for that? And then I apply those to my defenses, and that's what that is. I'm also the co-creator of LogMD. LogMD is the log and malicious discovery tool. It's a logging tool that will check your system against the Windows logging cheat sheets, as well as CIS benchmarks, USGCBs, Aussie cyber standards, etc. And it does a bunch of other malicious discovery items like hashing and registry snapshots, large risk keys, and whatnot. So yes, I have done hackery, I have done red teaming. If you're interested in something interesting project I did, just go to YouTube and look for card key exploit. This was not an RFID, right? The RFID, that's not what we exploited. We actually exploited the back-end controller, and we're able to open all the doors that are connected to the controller. There's a maintenance mode we took advantage of. And so, yes, I've been there. We met with the CTO, or actually the CEO. We sent them a letter. We responsibly disclosed the vulnerability. Within 6 days, the CEO contacted us and said, how can we help? Sent us a whole new kit, a board and everything, that I created a little buzzer type thing that we analyzed their changes. So I have done the red team stuff, so know that I've been there. I worked for HP, North American Security Practice, for 8 years, so I had my dabbles in it. I've also broken a few security tools and contacted CTOs, one of which is Tripwire, for example. I found a flaw with Tripwire that turns out it's design, and we were wondering why the Chinese never triggered Tripwire, and we figured out why, and we called them and said, yeah, we need to tell you we found something. So in file integrity monitoring, if you do the system live and you drop a file in the box, in theory, the file integrity monitor is supposed to record that that file was dropped. In reality, they sample it about every 10 seconds. So if you can drop malware, detonate malware, delete malware off the box, Tripwire is never going to see it, for example. I assume many of the file integrity solutions have a similar problem. So I love making these calls because I get to tell people how their stuff's broken. I met with people at IBM. I said, hey, I got a flaw I found with BigFix, but I can also use BigFix to find the flaw and fix it, so that was kind of cool. And it's on their list to fix, but I'm not sure they ever have. It involves Unicode. And again, I'm the worst and best kind of customer. because I will actually test your stuff, and I'm going to talk about that a bit in my prezzo, so you can fix your stuff, okay? One of the things I can't stand is these vendors, they spew all this stuff to you, you test their products, and you find some really obvious, glaring things. Share it with them. They will not improve their products unless you share it with them. So my 20 years, I've done a lot of crap. Anybody here know Bell C&E at any point in their time? Yeah, okay. We're old. The rest of you aren't. That's how that works. I used to work for a company called Vanstar. It was the largest bar in the world until they bought somebody else, or accrued so much debt. Fortunately, I had left just before, and they closed their doors. Yes, I'm old. I designed the NT4 desktop for when I worked at Microsoft as a contractor for Intel. So I spent a year at Intel designing their NT4 stuff. That was a very interesting experience. One company that takes security very seriously. I worked in Y2K tobacco litigation for a healthcare company. I was big brother of a bank in Utah until Wells Fargo bought us, which sent me off to HP Consulting for 8 years. So I've gotten around. I then left HP after the EDS acquisition and went to work for the Texas Comptroller. Anybody ever hear of the Texas Comptroller's data leak where we lost 7.5 million records? I'm the poor bastard that found it. They fired my boss, fired the head of IT, and then made me boss. So what did they just teach me? If I find something, you're fired. So I left because that just didn't make any sense to me. I then went over to the short stint in a cloud company. Then I went over to the gaming company where I unfortunately had to deal with the Chinese on almost a monthly basis. And when I say almost monthly, I mean something got compromised by them, either the entire environment or a single or multiple systems every flippin' month, except for around Chinese New Year's, which they didn't do anything. I learned a lot there. Everything I thought I knew got applied when I was in the gaming industry. It was a serious wake-up call for everything that I had talked about with people, everything I learned at HP, everything I taught our clients, everything I was trying to teach our own consultants at HP, and I actually had to apply it. It's a big wake-up call. I had a stint with a financial company, helping them set up some security stuff as well, and a cloud company. And now I'm in healthcare and higher ed. That is a SaaS provider. We develop applications and crunch their data and help them save lots of money, retain students, things like that. As far as community, I did spend 1 year at ISSA as a VP. My plan was to become president, but then B-Sides came to town. We didn't know much about it at that point in time. This was, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago. And I said, well, wait a minute. B-Sides is kind of a big deal now. It's the community for the community. So I left the ISSA board to run B-Sides Texas. B-Sides Texas was 4 cons. We were the largest entity of the B-Sides groups. Michelle and I ran the LLC, myself running the company itself, and my wife did the books. And I ran the 2-day Austin con. The rest of the cons are 1 days. And we had Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and Dallas. Really great experience, a lot of fun. And as those who put on this con, something you should definitely look into. And then also malware archaeology was something I founded, something I wanted to get back to the community. I wish everybody knew this, because I used to teach logging at HP, and I wanted everybody to kind of know, what's the number one question I get asked? What you said. Thus the cheat sheets got created. And then based on that, dealing with the Chinese, wanting a tool that does certain things, red shot, GUI, can't really deploy that with command line. I wanted a tool that allowed me to analyze malware quickly, basic analysis, not deep analysis. Basic analysis, get the artifacts I need, be able to look at a Windows box very quickly, identify if it's compromised or not. So we developed a tool called LogMD. So my 20 years, I've done a lot. I spoke earlier of the WinNTI stuff. So in 2012, I joined about 3 months before this attack started. And then the following year, Kaspersky in April 2013 put this report out about the WinNTI group attacking the Chinese. We found it 9 months before. So I got there, I think, in April. It hit us in June. So talk about, hey, jump in the fire. Fortunately, a friend of mine, the one that got fired at the Texas Comptroller for basically disclosing the data leak, was the one that got in there, bought a bunch of products, implemented them all, and said, hey, I need a lot of help. We're constantly being pounded here. You want to come over here and have some fun? I'm like, yeah, let's fight the Chinese. I'm like, great. Sounds like a blast. Yeah, not really, but it was fun. And there I developed the concept of the malware management framework. So you're in an environment. What do you look for? Well, the idea is, if I read a report from, say, Chris, who's going to speak later today, or any other researcher, Mandiant guy, and I find some unique thing about WMI or PowerShell or some registry key, I take that and go, I'm not watching for that. And I look at the tool sets I have and I say, how can I look for this condition? And I'll talk about the tool set later. But that's basically what it was. Look at the reports, pull out the interesting artifacts, which, by the way, I'd really like the bitch at the AV in IR industry for not making a clear, concise, these are good artifacts. They always put those stupid MD5s at the end, which are worthless to me, because we all know APT is, every hash is different. But they should stick out to us. I shouldn't have to read a paragraph and go, oh, that's interesting. It installed a service. It should be very obvious to us. So I wish they'd improve on that. And I validated in the course of 2012 that logging is badass blue teaming. Okay, that's another thing I learned. In 2014, they provided, we provided a well-known IR firm. I won't pick on them because they're really good 99.9% of the time. This was their off day. They had been acquired. You probably know who it is now. And they basically probably were shorthanded that day or week. We gave them this thing. So we gave them an infected VM with the 2014 WinNTI stuff. They came back and said it was clean. Your VM has nothing on it. We proceeded then to walk them through what was infected on the VM and completely blew their minds. So, yeah, I think at that point we were just like, man, oh man, oh man. And I think at that point we had graduated to the top of our class. Woohoo! We're better than XYZ company for that day or week, right? I'm good friends with a lot of them. They have some mad skills, so it really has to do with whether they've seen this particular attack type before and whether or not their automated process of detecting or looking for it before they put an actual engineer on it will find it. So in 2014, these guys hid their payloads in the registry, in their scripts, and their calls. They basically just encrypted them and dropped them in a certain key in a couple places, different boxes. And basically, we see that as being called fileless malware today. To me, personally, it's just clever malware. I don't think it's fileless because the registry is a database. The database is a file. File's on the box. So you have to think about, how can I find these? Well, one of the things based on this attack we had put in LogMD was the search for large reg keys, because there aren't many large reg keys in a box. Okay, you literally got about 20 of them, and half of those are duplicated because you got HK current user, HK users, so they're identical keys. You whitelist those out, and you can check your entire enterprise for large reg keys, and it's a wonderful thing if you're looking for this kind of fileless, or as the vendors call it, fileless. There was a podcast, Breaking Down Security. Any Breaking Down Security listeners here? Woohoo! If you listened to the Fileless Malware podcast I was on a week ago or so, please listen to Breaking Down Security. They have a good variety of guests. Dave Kennedy's been on it, I've been on it. Some good content, very variety in the people. Brian Betcher, their co-host, is actually co-founder of LogMD as well. And so we put these kind of artifacts that we find into the tool LogMD. That's how we look at it. The other thing they did is they modified the management tools. So they modified the McAfee framework service as well as the Big Fix client helper service. They borked it. The hash changed, right? Dead giveaway. But how many people here would think that they would modify the actual management binaries, your compliance or software patching tool, and your AV tool to actually read the registry, decrypt the payload, drop it on disk where a service had been called that was already sitting there pointing at a fake empty file, to actually pop the box? I mean, that's just that's something I would secondarily say, yeah, I'm going to look for that first. No, I would look for that last. But fortunately, because of the way we caught them, which I'll show you a screenshot of, it kind of led us to that conclusion. And of course, they used a service to load that binary once the management tool dropped it from the registry. So, kind of cool. So, my thoughts about the InfoSec industry. Where are we today? InfoSec is like many other industries. The automotive industry, right? Crash. First, we started with cars with no seatbelts, then we got seatbelts, then we got collapsible steering wheels, airbags, dual airbags, multiple airbags, crash barriers, yada, yada, yada. So that industry, like ours, has actually evolved, right? Or we are evolving as well. The airline industry also went through an evolution. I was in aerospace when the first two of these went down, so when I flew, I was pretty white-knuckled, because I know what can fail on these things because I used to make the parts. And in this case, the rudder had locked, and it caused the plane, depending on the pilot's reaction, would flip upside down and then, of course, into the ground. And 3 of those had to go down before the airline industry acknowledged this is a problem. So InfoSec's very similar to that. So where are we with this evolution? Do people really have to die or breach first? Well, you got Anthem. I was stuck in that one. I froze my credit. How many people here freeze their credit? If you don't, you really should. $30, and you have to unfreeze it when you need to apply for credit. Worth their weight in gold. So are we at seatbelts? Where are we at with InfoSec? This is a discussion we can have the next 2 days as you think about it and move forward with your career. Where are we actually at? Is compliance our seatbelts? Is that the first step, right? The first real thing that we saw with security is compliance. So we know these are all humongous breaches, and they all, in theory, were doing compliance. So maybe seatbelts aren't enough for us. I don't know. We are still very earlier evolution, right? It is still management's lack of acceptance of why we aren't really there yet, right? Do we have a real perceived value? We're basically considered cost overrun to them. So we have to basically convince them, or are they going to have to die like these companies did? That's the question. So let's talk about some career thoughts. I know we have some children here. We got probably some youngins. How many people are just starting out in InfoSec? Unlike us old ones. Okay, so here's some advice for you guys. Blue team, baby! I know some of you are going to groan. You can boo and hiss. That's okay. That gives the crowd a sense of what the mix is here. 80% of the jobs are blue team related. Sorry, that's just the reality. A lot of us say we want to be red teamers and everything. We start out, we want to be red teamers. We think it's cool. We think it's sexy. But the reality is, you have to end up getting a job with blue teaming. You may do some side red teaming, but for the most part, blue team, baby. It does rock. And some people even say you can't be a blue teamer until you're red team. I'm going to disagree. The amount of jobs that are out there will reinforce that. I think in the course of you evolving as a blue teamer, or as a console monkey, as I call them, people that are just working the EPO console or whatnot, you will start to learn, and I will start to mentor you. That's what I have people I mentor, and try to get them to do better in what they do. And that's what we have to do, is we have to mentor people so that we don't have to say this anymore or believe this anymore, because it really is not true. We don't have the time to get every blue teamer on the planet, red team them first to become a blue teamer. We can teach them, they can have roles, they can have functions within our environments, no problem. And as you mature as a red teamer, a blue teamer, you will do some red teaming. You will have to look at something and say, why is this getting compromised, right? What caused this to occur? What are they taking advantage of? DLL side loading. How is that DLL loading in the Windows directory? When I log into Explorer, it sideloads the DLL, away it goes, right? And then, of course, the typical pen testing mentality, red teaming, and blue teaming mentality. How does this work, right? So I think as a part of blue teaming, you will do some red tasks, but you no longer have to be a red teamer to be a blue teamer. Blue teamers can, right out of the box, start being good. Now, if we look at the jobs, thanks to Dave Foote, I was at Rocky Mountain InfoSecCon, and Dave did this presentation. He was ripping through these slides, and I'm like, can I borrow those? Can I have those? Because that's, perfect. Now, these are job titles just in general of what's here. Again, notice all the job titles, and notice there's only one red team. And in here, same thing. We got a bunch of jobs. There's a GIAC, pen tester, another pen tester. But again, all certifications are around blue team. And again, we have 3 of them on here. We got the EU involved, but again, blue team with a couple of red teams. So the jobs really are in blue team. Sorry, but that's just the reality. And most of those red team jobs are probably in consulting. Careful. So getting started in InfoSec. If I hear I want to be a pen tester or a red teamer one more frickin' time, yeah. A word of wisdom to the students, noobs, and I know there's some students. Rod had me wait specifically to address them, and of course the wannabes. If you're destined to be a red teamer, yeah, you're probably already doing it. That's the reality. That's the mentality of how red teaming works. It's kind of built into our red team mentality. I got started freaky. I had a really big, expensive phone bill, and I set out to figure out how to make long-distance phone calls for free. That's how I got started. Little box. My dad says, "What's that?" I'm like, "Oh, it just plays music when someone's on hold." Yeah. It did much more than that. Or when they put a lock on the dialing phone in the garage so they can get a hold of me after school when I was in the garage, it had a lock on number 1. Yeah, they didn't know that 1111 was a 4, 11111111 was a 7. They didn't know that. So I learned really quickly how to hack because I used what I had. It's kind of built into the red mentality, right? To automatically be a self-starter, right? And you have to be incredibly curious. You can't come out of school and say, "I'm going to be a red teamer." Yeah, you'd already been doing it. So you better start now. You better get a mentor. You better get somebody to help you out, guide you, lead you the way. So if you're not doing it, you're probably too late, or it's going to be an uphill battle because you're really going to have to be a good ninja to prove it. I asked 3 questions every time. At B-Sides Austin, I was there, and I was talking to somebody I was talking to earlier, and he was next to a female, and I like to get the females encouraged. You don't see a lot of them. So I'm like, "Hey, how'd you hear about this stuff? I don't see you here before. I'm a student out of school." I'm like, "What do you want to be?" And guess what she said? A red teamer. So I asked her my first question, which I ask all of you. Should be an obvious answer by now. What is the number one thing I would use to catch a red teamer, pen tester, or hacker? Any guesses? There we go. Log data. Log data is the right answer. How do you compile a Linux binary? Oh, she just stared at me like she didn't have any clue what I was talking about. Okay. What distro? Do you have to have GCC? I mean, come on, people. If you're a red teamer and you're going to be a pen tester, you got to answer these questions. And of course, are you seriously good at documentation? Right? If you don't do these three questions right off the top of the bat, and you can't rip those out, my interview's over with you. There's no way you're going to be a pen tester or a red teamer on my team, because you should already have known that or been taught that. And again, I'm not going to teach you how to hack. You got to find a mentor, or better yet, volunteer. I talked to a class at UT last year, University of Texas in Austin, big university. You'd think they'd have a clue. 75 students or so. Matt Tesaro was the adjunct professor. He's the OWASP Live CD author and maintainer. He now works full-time at OWASP. And I asked him the questions, how many people have been to a B-Sides event? Okay, I ran B-Sides for 6 years in Austin, and none of them had been to one of my B-Sides. So I'm just like, oh, this is really bad. Your instructors are awful. Now, I'd retired when I talked to Matt's class, so he knew I wasn't running it anymore. So then I offered free B-Sides Austin, because I still have a poll, obviously. If you just write a 2-page essay of why you wanted to be an InfoSec and what you wanted to do and how you found it interesting. 2-page. 0 submissions. Talk about fail. I would not have hired a single one of them. This is the state of a lot of our colleges and universities, right? We complain about developers not coming out with secure development. How about people that are in the InfoSec program? These are juniors and seniors who 5 knew that they wanted to be in some vertical, and 70 are like, I don't know. Man, I don't know if it's a millennial thing or not. You have to ask some millennials around you about that one. So getting started. You have to be curious. You have to seek the knowledge. All of us in this room, this doesn't apply just to the noobs. This applies to anybody who wants to change roles, right? I was a Novell C&E. The reason I was a Novell C&E is I used to do engineering and CAD equipment. Drawings got too big for floppies. We started networking this stuff together. I'm like, oh, cool, there's a lot of people buying this stuff. So I went into the networking side. Ooh, there's routers in the internet. Ooh, this can't end well. So I went into that. And I basically evolved into security before it was an industry, right? I had the curious and I sought out that knowledge. I'm not sure the Novell certification was the right thing to do, but hey, at the time, I was also an MCSC for NT351. Yeah, I'm old. You have to seek out and attend community events. I was shocked that none of them knew about ISSA or IC Squared or NASEG or AHA or 512, whatever your equivalent is here. Ours is Awesome Hacking Anonymous or 512 group, right? You have to seek them out. You have to help people seek them out. Okay, you have to help the students seek them out. Volunteer for the classes is what I would say. Go talk to the professors. You also have to seek out conferences and ask for scholarship. There's this 15-year-old kid a couple years ago, actually not 3 years ago, he's probably pushing 18 and getting ready to go to college now, where he stood up in a room of about 300 people, stood up and asked a question in front of all these InfoSec guys. I'm like, dude, you got some cojones. And the fact that he did that, I offered him and gave him a scholarship and got him into B-Sides Las Vegas for free, and we got him a DEF CON pass as well. If you show some gumption, we are going to reward you if you can show your worth. Seek out. Again, you have to seek out and present at local conferences and proving grounds. If you think what I'm doing right now is fun, and you think you can get in front of people, you want to prove yourself, you want to be a thought leader, you actually have to, someone else has to say you're a thought leader. You can't decide you're going to be one. So quit doing that. But there are proving ground talks at a lot of conferences. Seek them out and proving grounds. Not a big crowd. You'll get mentored. And it's a wonderful thing if you want to advance your career, because management, leadership is going to require you to talk to people. Some of us don't like talking to people. You're going to have to. So work trends. Well, again, we lack resources, right? Shortfall, 1.5 million cyber... drink. I can't have booze, so I'll just fake drink. Cybersecurity professionals, right? 209,000 cybersecurity jobs in the U.S., right? 75% of the postings. Again, 1,000 top-level cybersecurity experts globally, but we need like 10,000. So there's a shortage. A lot of those are console monkeys and whatnot. But nevertheless, we do have a shortage. The ISACA RSA study showed that managers say less than a quarter of the applicants actually have the skill sets that they need. Why? Well, they're not curious enough, they're not seeking out the knowledge, they're not doing everything that's supposed to be this far. 53% says it takes 3 to 6 months to get these people, to the point they're hired, and another several months to get them onboarded. So the process is slow. Meaning if it's slow, someone else is going to hire your person away from you. So agility is definitely a problem here for companies. Right? And again, a lot of people say that we aren't given the things we need to basically promote our skills opportunity, and the work isn't good. Yes, ma'am? Not even close. All the stuff I just talked about, your son, daughter, whomever, should be seeking that out. You should be dragging them here. You should be taking them to local meetings, right? We'll get that in a second. And again, retaining talent is a big one here. This is for your, I will post this on SlideShare afterwards, so you guys can download the item, especially those who are interested in getting your kids involved. Promoting a work-life balance, I'm going to talk about that as well. It's really up to us to achieve this. If you think your employer is going to do this for you, yeah, you're doing it wrong, man. You're seriously doing it wrong. Okay, so this is a good list, right? Change up assignments, yeah, we like variety. What else is new? Right? What job? Well, there are a lot of jobs state workers don't really like variety. But again, keep the job interesting. Don't enforce the ranks. No, it's not your position to say. You really do need to listen to people. That's kind of the new fluffy thing. It's really big in Austin, by the way. Sometimes it's like, okay, write your idea down, give it to somebody who will actually be able to articulate it to me. Because some people aren't very good at doing that idea giving. But this is what keeps people happy. What's the one thing missing from this slide? Don't work for a dick manager. All right? If you don't like your manager, you are in the wrong job. You must have some respect for your manager, not a lot of respect. But again, I work for him because I respect him, I like him, and he lets me do stuff like this to educate. We're real big on community. I get 10 hours a month to do community, so actually I'm doing community service right now. It's really good. But again, keeping that talent is important. It's something we should all understand and know. Training. Not SANS. Don't blow your training wad on the class. Though it is top-notch training, I will not knock the training, I just knock the price. Yes? Yeah, so he says, what if you do have a bad boss, but you have to stay at that position in order to move up and get a better boss? That's a decision you'll have to balance and make. Is this a short-term dick boss, as I say? Or is it something that you don't think, you move on? There are people that work for him. They'll want you in that position and not let you out of that position. You're going to have to make that call on yourself. Does the company have that mobility capability? Is there a way for you to apply? Is there a way for him to stomp down on it or her to stomp down on it? There's that consideration that occurs. But if at any given time in your industry, with as many jobs that are out there, you run into that roadblock, I suggest you move on. Find another gig that's more reliable. Yeah. Yeah, two. Yeah. Yeah. Which means don't work for me because I'm a dick. Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't think I'd wear that at work. That wouldn't go over well. But anyway, I do like SANS training, don't get me wrong, but I don't like the cost. A lot of us, how many people here have been to a SANS training? All right, how many people here can afford that on their own? Yeah, see the problem? How many people here have been to some other training like Hackmiami's training yesterday, or a B-Sides, or a Derby, or see more hands are going up, okay? Or one of my classes. My classes usually are really cheap, comparatively. I do our discovery training and basic analysis, where then after basic analysis, you do somebody like Chris would take over, because it's time consuming and somebody else, or I'll do it when I have time. And I do Windows logging training, Windows logging cheat sheets. But look out for those courses. They're cheaper. All right? Seek out that training and those items. DerbyCon training is what, $1,200? These are the same guys doing SANS class, same guys doing Black Hat classes. This training is going to benefit you because you can go to more of them. So, you have a choice. 2 training classes with 2 different cons, or 1 SANS course. Nah, 2 other trainings. Right? If you're going after the GIAC, then yes, he would be right. Right? You have to decide whether or not you're going to pay that for never-ending GIAC dollars. Another problem with that. Attend more B-Sides events, seriously. Like Hackmiami isn't a B-Sides event, but it's like that. It's a community event. And again, if someone else is paying, how many people here paid their own SANS course? Yeah, okay. See? Someone else is paying. That's why you're going. And again, it's great training. I'm not saying it's bad training at all. It's just, unfortunately, budgets are what they are. Budgets are budgets. And seek it out. Look it up. Ask people where the training is. Cert or not to cert. So get to the question of whether or not they should go to school. That is the question. We poke a lot of fun at certs, but the previous facts show you will need one or more certs. Now, you can't have certain certs, like a CISP needs 5 years experience some way, form, or manner. So in that aspect, you'll have to have a job first, and then you will have to get your certification. But again, it really does open the door. The reality is, we make fun at these certifications, but they are what HR looks for. They are what high-level managers look for. They may not be the guy who actually you work for is involved, because before the resumes get to them, there's this filter process in companies, and the reality is that's what they're looking at, right? So you will have to do them. Unfortunately, I am a CISSP. I was a CISA. I let that expire this year. Certified Information Security Auditor. What's that? Yeah. So I let that expire. I haven't audited since I left the state. I don't plan to audit again. And I'm a CISM as well, the management side of it. Do your homework. Seek advice of others, depending what they are. And yeah, CEH and SANS stuff too. Yes. No. All right, so here's my thought about education. I left it out of the slide deck because I didn't want the two to be confused. I wanted it to be more verbal than it was in the slide deck. I think everybody needs to go to school today. And the reason for that is companies, unfortunately, can immediately look at whether or not there's a degree, regardless of there being a certification or skill set. There are exceptions to that, which I'll cover in a sec, but... And how do you know they aren't going to get InfoSec burnout and therefore leave the industry, and now where are they at? Okay. So I think, unfortunately, today the young generation really should go to school for the fact of whatever the heck degree they get, hopefully not something like art or archaeology. I finally got to use archaeology. Guess where my degree went? Malware archaeology. I looked for artifacts in the desert. I didn't actually ever get anywhere with it because, no money. So from my perspective, go to school and get that degree, because you don't know what's going to happen later in your life. And I see a lot of our people dropping out and going on to all kinds of interesting next generation jobs. Okay. Correct, but you could go for a basic business degree, or you could go for an accounting degree, or whatever, if you really think auditing's like cool. But you could do, right? So you really should align that degree with something that I call as employable. There's a book called Worthless, and it talks about worthless degrees. So look it up, because the U.S. has way too many of them. Way too many of them. That means they're unemployable. Get an employable degree, and then yes, focus at then this stuff second. Okay, or in the process of doing it. Yes. He just wants to damn thing. I can't get him in the back with a hand up. Yes. Helps you be more social for sure. Yes, in the back. Yep. 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 That's the reality. It's true. The exception to that is, in my case, my last 5 jobs were from somebody I knew. Whether I had a degree or not was irrelevant. All right, so, yes, I got to move on. I have 15 minutes. The ones I listed, well, that was pretty close. The ones I listed were pretty much it. There are some specialty, obviously, SANS GX and whatnot. It depends what you're interested in. So seek them out, talk to your colleagues and people in the con and say, what kind of cert would you be interested in? And you may have to chase that cert, get some experience, and then take the test, because you have to have some time behind it. So again, 35% of security jobs call for certification, right? 23% of IT jobs. So we are much higher cert required than others. So that's just the reality of things. So it's your career. You have to manage it. You think or expect your manager or your company to do so for you, you're sadly mistaken. So let's talk tools. There's no such thing as prevention. Just, anybody not agree with that? Prevention's really reduction, right? It's just a reduction of what's happening. All the bad guys get around all of our tools. If prevention worked, then why would we need all these blinky blue boxes? Detection and response is the future because we can't stop them. Let's detect them. After living this and realizing and watching the Chinese bypass all of our security tools, tipping point, IPSs, tripwire, etc., yeah, they know and buy the same tech we do and know how to get around it. And we should know we cannot stop them. Pen testing is 100% successful. 99% of the time, I think. Rare that a pen tester says, I actually couldn't get into this gig. I was real surprised. Okay. Anybody here not been able to get in as a pen tester? I rest my case. So really get good at detecting so you can stop them before they make Krebs list, right? Welcome to the future. And you don't want to be on Krebs list. If you saw my t-shirt from yesterday, I wore the cybersecurity one. Tomorrow I'll wear the Krebs shirt. Free is not free. Open source downloads and everything, yeah, they're free, but they're not people free. And here's actually somebody had done a calculation of COTS software versus open source, almost double the cost. But again, have you heard we lack InfoSec resources? So spending a lot of time in open source, I understand lack of budgets, but not necessarily fan from that perspective. So my top 10 security tools. Any guesses what number 1 is? Well, log management. You're pretty much close. Any guesses at number 2? Big fix or equivalent? No, not the patching part. Number 3? Only because I'm biased and I wrote it, but really it does fill a hole. Anybody care to guess what 4 through 10 are? Somebody's going to get this. No. There aren't any. How many up here are security tools, other than the fact that I wrote one with Ryan, right? This is what I've concluded in my 20 years experience is security tools, yeah, they can bypass them. Chris can probably validate some of this in regards to malware. I'm starting to see malware that locks binaries. It's a feature in LogMD to look for locked binaries, by the way, because the quarantine action of the EDR solutions can't take action on the locked files, so they're already developing the bypasses or ways to get to stay persistent. In no specific order, 11 and on is basically compliance or whatever. Doesn't matter after this. Pick one or more tools that you have. Pick Gartner, however your decision is to buy the tools. That's what happens. Okay, you just buy that stuff and you fill it in because you have to, or you think it fills a gap, or it does fill a gap. But really, what makes them the top 10 is they exceed my expectations by well over 100%. When I realized BigFix allowed me to ask any system in the company a question and return back an answer in less than 15 minutes, and then run a job to rename the file, take ownership of the file, whatever, and clean the system up, I was like, oh, this is badass. And then I could say, I'm going to watch this directory in Windows for new DLLs. Oh, and it alerts me on it. That's badass, right? Nothing I had did that. Log management for obvious reasons. But again, they were things that caught the Chinese hackers. This is what we caught the Chinese hackers with, not any of the security tools. Yes? I'll cover that in a sec. Over 50% of us have dissatisfaction with our tools. What the frick, people? Does anybody even test their tools? The answer is I don't think they're doing a very good job. We're doing an EDR solution right now, so here's my EDR. If you're doing EDR and you want to know how to test it, take LogMD, infect a box, LogMD it, see what all the malware did, and then do the same thing with the EDR solution and compare the two. It's going to blow your mind. LogMD is way ahead. It just doesn't prevent anything. It's a detective. And that's what our test goes through, right? Are we going to listen to the Gartner salespeople or whatnot? Seriously, improve your POCs and evaluations. That's what I've learned over the last 20 years. People generally take the word on it or see some cool features, but when they actually implement the tool, it does not meet their expectations. 50% is pretty bad. So find out they suck sooner so you can pick a better tool. Automation. I am not a fan, speaking to all of you guys who write Python code for crying out loud, I'm not a fan of hacking tools, whether it's pen testing, InfoSec, or forensics tools. I have better things to do. We all do. Again, remember that lack of resources from earlier? Please compile your Python code. I am so tired of trying to get somebody's Python code to compile on my Python. It's not even funny. And it's why LogMD is compiled. We want to be able to deploy it with SCCM, BigFix, or whatever, and run it on the box and gather the reports. Right? And have you heard we lack InfoSec resources? Again, if we don't start automating, we cannot scale. We do not have enough people. You cannot do your job well enough to, you're going to have to automate it. So we can basically create more automation to fill the gaps, because management keeps looking at this as overhead. InfoSec people cost serious dollars. Do the math. If you've got a group of 10 people in InfoSec and suddenly you're asking for 2 more, start doing the math of how much that costs to the company. And what real value are they getting out of us? I know a company that has 100 InfoSec analysts at $100,000 an average or more. Anybody want to do the math there? That company has a serious, that's a big number to the executives. And again, even if we save them from a breach or get the Mandiants of the world out quicker, they don't really perceive that value. Right? Insurance is only valuable when you use it. And now they're buying insurance, and we're still working there, so what good are we? Adding people will not scale. We must start automating InfoSec. Log management, we suck as an industry. Sorry, we do. People don't even turn it on locally. That's something you're going to have to get over. Windows logging cheat sheets. Same logic applies to Linux and Mac as well. Yes? You mean like Anthem, Yahoo, and PCI? Yep. They're basically requiring you, from insurance perspective, to be somewhat PCI compliant or equivalent. HIPAA, high-tech, high-trust, whatever. Yep. Yep. So you're going to be evaluated before you can even get insurance. Yep, and so great. We have people helping the insurance companies out validate us, all the PSCI work, all the IRS 1075 work, and really we're doing no real security engineering. So great for that. But yes, they do require it. Yeah, that's a good point. Insurance might be hiring red teamers. Yes, we can even catch red teamers with log management, right? It is the #1 tool by far, because they really can't bork your logs. If you're collecting it off box and they clear the logs, it's still off box. WinNTI, one of the bad WinNTI guys, there were definitely multiple actors. This guy would make a bunch of typos and then clear the logs. That was stupid. Even Carlos Perez knows how important logging is. Good shout out, friend of mine, ex-HP person. He does red teaming and wrote a Metasploit module to look for the stuff in the cheat sheet. Step 1. Again, follow the cheat sheets, or CIS, do that. That's how you do good log management. What do I enable is what they answer, and yes, the same logic applies to OSX or Nix. They're just not event codes like Windows. Step 2, find a good tool. I don't care if you open source it or whatnot, but again, people is not free, but the tool may be. Splunk is definitely awesome here. LogMD is a standalone tool, no central console. But again, work with the red team to catch what they're logging. If you're a red teamer, definitely log better. I'm definitely running behind. This is an example of what we caught in logs of the WinNTI breach, to give you an idea of why I think it's so valuable. This is everything we found. The cool part is, it led us to the keys based on the command line logging that allowed us to realize that's where they're hiding their code. And all the commands and directions they were going and what they were doing. So log management, this is what caught WinNTI in 2014. BigFix or equivalent. So yes, there's others. Google Gur, OS Query, SCCM, doesn't matter. SCCM is not quite the same duck. I need to be able to ask the system a question, whatever tool that may be. Investigator, OS Query, is not very good on Windows because they actually paid somebody else to compile it. But again, do you have this? If you do see this, alert me, and then run a job to clean it up. BigFix is awesome for this. Tanium would be a similar thing. But I'm going to fill the logs with a bunch of PowerShell or VB script or whatever, because that's what you have to write container. And then LogMD number 3, because again, it's a standalone tool where I can investigate a box. I'll rip through these. We can talk about that later. There are 3 editions. There is a free edition, so please go download the free edition. 1 to 7 days of log. If you need more than 7 days of log, get log management. We do full file system hashing and registry snapshots. We do large reg keys. We do the sticky keys exploit, null bytes in the registry, list of auto runs, log files, everything us IR people need, it does. Right? And that's why it's my number 3 tool. 15 reports for free, 25 reports for pro. You guys can look it up. Shrum is interesting. How many people here know about Shrum 8.1 and 10? There's one in the back. Yeah, so the statistics of a binary, so whatever.exe, sending bytes in and out. So now I can answer in the 6-day period that the Shrum database holds, potentially when the box first got compromised and how many bytes actually left the box, so did I lose any data. And then auto runs, we have a compare feature with let's just chop it down to almost nothing, be able to do it enterprise-wide and look for funky auto runs. So what can you do? Red team versus blue team, aka purple. I'm not thrilled with the level of red team details that are covering blue stuff, right? I see Prezos and they say, okay, great. Look for 4624 logins that are not LSAS is not enough, right? I need to know that they're not calling SEE TCP priv. So if you see a 4624 that's calling some funky binary, some name of binary that's calling TCP priv, then you know you're having a request to the database of credentials, aka Mimikatz. You have to get more specific in your red team talks about blue team details. People on blue team side really need this kind of level of detail, so please do it. And again, use the Windows login cheat sheets. If you're a red teamer, Rod, configure your Windows boxes to do this, and then look at your attacks and what it's discovering, so you can better teach your engagements what to do. So please, do a better job. Many say red team is sexy. I say blue team is sexy, right? Red team has to be right once. Malwarians, on the other hand, also have to be right once. But us blue teamers have to be right all the time. Wait a minute. That'd be right all the time. Oh, crap, that means my wife's right? So blue team's clearly more challenging because we have to be right all the time, unlike the red teamers. Are you up for the challenge as a blue teamer? Are you? Because trust me, it's fun, it's challenging, a lot of late nights, but it's good. Personally, I don't think there's anything more sexy than to catch the Chinese and kick them out. I had a ball the day we did that, multiple times. I had to add this because of what happened. I just want to cry that all of you are not doing this. So for the love of Spock, please block the incoming malicious known file types in your email gateways so you don't even receive them emails. But also, number one thing, change your Windows hosted script engine to Notepad. That way, however the VB script gets in, or the WSF, WSH, all that crap that gets in, when the user gets a Word doc with OLE and some EBS script, they double-click it. Deny the double-click. It will open a Notepad instead of detonate. This is how 90% or 99% of the malware and freaking ransomware stuff's hitting us. We turned this off in our environment, and I am not kidding you, 6 months, nothing in regards to ransomware. We just completely dropped it. Community. Let's end with community. I was on the ISSA board for 1 year, B-Sides for 6, like I spoke of. Everyone here, including the youngins that are probably in the other room, some of them standing up in the back, please get involved with the local community. It's what allows, like Rod is doing for you guys here and the people out there, please hug them and thank them for the work they've done. I know doing B-Sides for 6 years, Rod ran a CTF 1 year and has visited us and talks as well. But again, it is something that will definitely advance your career. If I see this on your resume, yeah, guess what? You just bumped up. You floated to the top of the list much quicker. You know, seriously, a lot can be learned here. It builds relationships, contacts. How do you think Rod and I know each other? He's a red teamer, right? I'm a blue teamer. The two shall not meet. Yes, last section, so I am almost done. And again, serious resume and help enhancement. We need your help. Please volunteer. Please, 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 please. And you will have to mentor. Hopefully what I'm doing here, giving you some ideas. Again, people are looking to move positions. The young ones, the wannabes, the noobs, they need our mentoring. They need our skills. You need to get them under your arm. Women, too. Mentor more women. Because, again, they bring a completely different mindset to our groups. They can accomplish things we can't, maybe just because of personality. But there's a lot of work here. We have one in Austin now that's setting up shop. Watch out for what she's doing. She's got some great stuff going on there. We talk about kids. We definitely want to mentor the kids. They need help in the colleges. Okay, like she asked, this is a common problem that all of us are responsible to help out with. Whether you do the Cyber Patriot program, which would be my recommendation, by the way, is a school that does CCDC. So yes, we can get to that point. Get them interested. I tried to get into my local high school right across the street from my house where my daughter went to school, and they're like, nope, sorry, not interested because you're not part of the curriculum. That's just sad. You have any idea what I can do? Come in here and show you some of the cool hackery I do? Yeah. That's a bummer. We have to break that gap, whether it's Cyber Patriot or anybody else. And again, remember the 80-20 thing. Again, blue team is 80% of the jobs, and again, we have InfoSec challenge. Last but not least, burnout. This is an issue. Try fighting the Chinese regularly. Boy, I was burnt out. It is eventually why I left, because the manager kept opening it whole, which is how they end up compromising the gaming stuff again. So yeah, I get tired of stupidity. But again, we have to balance our lives, and no one can do that but you. All of you have to balance your own life. Okay? I mountain bike. I used to race. There's my medals. There's me at Slick Rock in Moab. Rod here actually is a DJ. Okay? We all have to find something non-techie outside of this. I do the contours. To me, that is not that's not my job part. That's something that I enjoy, teaching, sharing, etc. Remember that community thing? So it is up to you in regards to burnout. With that, the resources, you can get the stuff at malwarearchaeology.com. The tool can be found at log-md.com. I will be around. Let's talk. Let's bring up some of these things we talked about. Let's answer some of the questions about getting the kids in school. Let's share. There's lots of people here that can share, I'm sure. And if you want to share, go seek out one of the kids you see and start bringing up a conversation. Unless you're a red teamer, just stay away from the kids. We don't want to poison them. And with that, take any questions offline since we're a little behind. Please ask me questions. I'm here to share. And I do have more thumb drives, and I see one hand. Yes, I see lots of hands. They will be on SlideShare and also through malwarearchaeology.com. Under resources, there's presentations. You'll see the link there. Thank you.